Okay. Okay, so can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
This is supposed to be a very basic and short introduction to public construction management. The same slides that I put together, I'll reutilize them towards the end of your internship, and we'll go over the same concepts again, but at a more intimate characterization of what public construction is all about. I'll be recording this video so that you all can bring it back to college or use the material as reference in your careers. And we'll keep it very informal. So you guys are welcome to interrupt me, ask questions, make comments. But then at the end, I'll be opening up for general questions and comments and a quick Q&A. Aside from public construction, we'll lightly touch on project and program management. But this will perhaps be another class, another webinar where we have more time to focus on it, project management and program management. Guys, a little disclosure about myself. I've been working as an owner's rep here at Dallas ISD since January 2021. So it's been a little over a year now. And it is actually my first time working at a program level. Back on the East Coast, I worked for a smaller firm representing school districts, and then also working at Jacobs, representing K through 12 clients, higher education projects, miscellaneous public projects. And these clients I represented on the East Coast, they were all at an individual level. And I'll explain what that is in a little bit, what an individual level client is. Well, perhaps I can just explain it now. What's the difference between working at a program level and the difference between working at a individual client level? Working for a program level, you represent one client, but this client will have several projects within the same district. And you are in charge of an entire portfolio that belongs to that one single client. It's a lot of work, right? And so you divide your tasks with a large group of individuals. For instance, here at Dallas ISD, Jacobs has project managers who manage the day-to-day interaction with the end users and the project team, to include the architect, the general contractor, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are a few other individuals who handle all the project controls, to include all the financials of the project, i.e. invoices, procurement. And then you also have a program director who handles all the direct communication with the owner and the stakeholders. So again, at a program level, you have a program director, you have the project managers, and then you have all the project control individuals. It's a whole group working towards not just one project, but a whole bunch of projects. So this is at a program level. At an individual client level, a client will reach out to you if he or she has a single project, and sometimes it's a new building, for example, a library. Sometimes it's the addition of a school. Sometimes it's just a renovation of an existing building. And you have one project and you manage all of the aspects of the project. So you are the project manager, you are your own program director, you manage all the project controls, and you are the owner's single point of contact. You are your own manager. So that's the difference between the individual client level and the program level. Now, again, at a program level, we also we have project managers, but the PMs are most often focused on the project development and day-to-day field interaction. And on the background, the PM has an army of expertise to support him with all the logistics of his project or her project. And not just a project, but multiple projects, sometimes 2 or 3 projects. Ideally, no more than 3 projects or or else we lose focus of all the details. And we know that the devil is on the details, which is why we don't want to overload our PMs. You guys hearing me well so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to mute my phone. So the devil is on the details, right? We don't want to overload our project manager. Sometimes 2 or 3 projects, that's ideal. Being a project manager at a program level and also at an individual client level, it's easy. It's very easy. But attention to detail is the utmost expertise that one can have to succeed, not just on the public business, but even on your day-to-day personal management needs, right? And here's why it's imperative attention to detail on the public sector. As we're going to see later today, public jobs, they have limited source of funds, and that limited source of funds don't come easy. There's a lot of work that goes towards securing those funds for a public project or a portfolio of projects. When an entity commits to a project, they have a budget that you need to work with, and they have a scheduled completion date that was promised to the public. Just to give you an example, I have a project where we started construction on April, and the owner promised the public to have students inside that building in the fall. So that's 4 months to complete a project. All the students are already enrolled and everything, right? There's no room for mistakes, or everyone is going to look very unprofessional. Someone made a promise, you have a budget, you have a schedule, you have to work with those 2 things. You either make it happen, or someone's gonna look bad, and you're that someone, right? It's not the one who made the promise. You're the project manager, so they're gonna point fingers at you and say, you didn't complete it, now you're at fault, right? Unfortunately, we're not always the one who makes the promise. We can't control that, but we're always the ones who are going to be at fault if we don't make things happen. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if a PM asks for too much responsibility or is given too much responsibility, he will not be able to orchestrate the project or the projects very well. The PM will, number one, he will exceed his already limited budget. Again, every public project, there's always a limited budget. And the PM will stretch that predetermined schedule. In public construction, there's just no room for you to exceed your budget or to stretch your schedule. That can happen in public construction. So if you take more responsibility than you can handle, you're hurting your client, you're hurting the taxpayer, and you're hurting yourself, because you're the one who's going to end up with a bad reputation. And I'm sure you don't want a bad reputation. So if you work for a firm and this firm loads you with more work than you can handle, just step away. Again, attention to detail is critical, and you need to be focused at all times, because, and I'll keep saying this, the devil is on the details. So don't overload yourself. And finally, being a project manager, like I said, it's easy. At a personal level, it's like buying groceries, right? You coordinate the best day of the week to go grocery shopping. Then you only buy the necessary. You don't want to buy groceries that you don't consume, right? You want to buy just enough so that you can fit it in your refrigerator, but you also don't want to exaggerate on the groceries, because they'll eventually go bad if you don't consume them. And then finally, you only buy what you're able to pay. That's project management 101 at your personal life. All it takes to be a good project manager is to be a good coordinator, a good communicator, and once again, attention to detail. That's all project manager is about. It's attention to detail, nothing more than that. I think we already talked about program management versus project management. Do you guys understand the difference?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, project management, program management, program, lots of projects, the whole portfolio. project management, either 1, 2, or 3 projects, sometimes more, but that's not really ideal. So let's look at some public construction material. Who's the project team in public construction? Well, you have the owner. I don't really need to give you a description of who the owner or what the owner is. It's self-explanatory. In public construction, the owner is the public, right? It can be the state of Tennessee. Who pays the taxes on the state of Tennessee? Well, it's the state of Tennessee residents. And the owner can be Missouri City. Who is it who pays real estate taxes in Missouri City? Obviously, it's the residents of Missouri City, so they're the owners. Now, within the city or state, there are public entities that represent the public. Missouri City, for instance, has a water works department, a public works department, a school district department, and each of these departments has a leader representing the department and the public. And if I work for any of those departments doing construction, I will consider any of those employees in that department the owner. I will consider that employee the owner because they are the owner's representatives. Make sense? And now, who are the owner representatives? Well, like I said, those individuals representing that public entity. It's the employees who get paid directly by that entity. And also us, Jacobs employees, right? Construction representatives. I am, at Dallas ISD, I am an owner's project manager because I represent the district. I work for Jacobs, but I represent the best interests of the Dallas Independent School District. Therefore, I am an owner's project manager. And then you have a designer. This is a no-brainer. This is the architect. And he's also an owner's representative. He works on the owner's best interests. But this entity the designer carries a lot of liability, whereas the owner's project manager, in this case, Jacobs, carries less liability. And the difference is that the OPM acts as a consultant advising only and coordinating the entire project team. And the architect designs the project, and you don't have to be in construction to understand that there's a lot of liability that comes with that comes with designing the project. And the designer has a team underneath him as well, right? The designer has a civil engineer, a technology consultant, a mechanical engineer, a code reviewer, a landscape professional, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole team who works under the designer. Okay, and then there's what I call the ancillary consultants. Everything in public business needs checks and balances. It's one party overseeing another party and holding each other accountable. It's like Democrats and Republicans, right? Democrats and Republicans are holding each other accountable. Now, imagine if it was just Democrats in the United States, or imagine if it was just Republicans, right? United States would be like Cuba or Venezuela, where there's no checks and balances. The same thing in construction. And some examples of ancillary work is a material testing agency, a roof consultant. These are firms that are reviewing the designer's design, right? One person looking at the other person's work. That's checks and balances. For example, a commissioning firm, they are looking at the architect's mechanical work, electrical work, and plumbing design. Again, it's one party reviewing the work of another. And ancillary consultants are hired directly by the owner or the owner's representative. And then sometimes after the project is designed, a general contractor is procured to build the project, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And 9 times out of 10 times, a general contractor does not self-perform. What does that mean? A general contractor is not the one who actually physically builds the work. A general contractor will sell the job or portions of the job to specialized subcontractors, right? There's a subcontractor for the sticks, a subcontractor for the drywall, one for the plumbing work. There's an electrician, an IT guy, landscaper, and each of these guys are a specialized subcontractor, and the GC is just orchestrating all of them. So kind of like the owner's representative is orchestrating the whole project team. The general contractor is orchestrating all the construction team, the subcontractors. Okay, so some delivery methods. There's a whole bunch of delivery methods. I'm just going to go over through some of them, the most important ones, the ones that are more common in public construction. There's design build, design bid build, construction manager risk, integrated project delivery, P3, and what we call JOC, job order contracting. And let's start with, I think just because of the sake of time, I'm going to skip design build because design build is very straightforward. It's like when you're buying a house, a new house from a contractor, right? One of those residential contractors. You buy that house on the plan from that residential general contractor, and he's the one designing and building the house for you, right? So you're only dealing with one person, that contractor, and he's the design builder. He's designing and building that house for you. That's what design build is, one person. And then there's design, bid, build. As the name suggests, this approach has three different phases. There's the design phase, the procurement phase, which is when the owner is looking for a builder, and the construction phase. There are many pros and cons for this approach, and it would probably take us several days to discuss all of them, all of the pros and cons, but here's what design bid build is supposed to give the owner. It's supposed to give the owner the best price for the project. Supposedly the owner gets the best price because the entire project is already designed. Remember, you design first, then you bid, then you build. So supposedly the owner gets the best price just because the entire project has already been designed. There should be little unforeseens at this point. And therefore it's easier for the GC to price the job that's already fully designed. That's the main advantage of this project delivery method. During the bid phase, the owner, the architect, and the owner's representative, these guys will review the proposals for the lowest price, and the team will recommend to the owner approval of the lowest and most qualified bidder. So that's design, bid, and build. And then there's what we call CMR, construction manager at risk. This is very common as well. The architect and the construction manager at risk, they work together at the early design phases. So the owner will hire the designer and the owner will hire a construction manager. And those two guys are working together during the early design phases. What's the difference between this option and the one above, DBB? Well, the one above, the architect works all by himself first. He designs the whole project, and then he goes out to bid. At CMR, the owners hire both the architect and the construction manager early on so that they design the project. And the advantage here is that you have the experience of a builder helping the architect come up with a design that will be easy to build. That's why these guys are working together. You have a construction manager who has field experience, and you have the designer who has the design experience. So these guys work together. They they work together. They come up with something that's easy to build, and they all have the same goals, right? Which is their success and the success of the owner. I say their success because it's all about money too, right? These guys wouldn't be working if they weren't making money. So success to them is money. And then through this delivery method, at some point between a 60 and 90% design completion, the construction manager will assume a different role in the project. The construction manager, until then, he has helped the architect design, but now he will switch contracts. He will withdraw from that initial contract where he was working as a construction manager, and now he will come in under a different contract as the builder, aka general contractor. So now he has a different role. He no longer is working along with the architect. He's working for himself as a general contractor. That switch happens usually sometime between 60 and 90% of the design completion. And this GC comes in at 60 and 90%, right? And he's very familiar with the job because he helped to design the project. And so he's comfortable enough with giving the owner a guaranteed maximum price for the project, right? Guaranteed maximum price. We call it GMP, guaranteed maximum price. And this GMP includes his cost of the project, his overhead, his profit, and everything else. It's a guaranteed maximum price. The advantage of this method is that you can start building your project early before you have a 100% design. Let's say you're the architect, you're at 60% design, right? You already have enough information on paper so that the construction manager can switch his role, come in as a GC, and start building the project early. So you see CMR in fast-tracked projects. Fast-track projects, I'm sure you guys know what the term is, but it's a fast project. It's a fast-paced project. So this is one of the advantages of this contract method CMR, to fast-track a project. And then let's move on to IPD, integrated project delivery. This is a new method. I'm not going to focus on it a lot because it's new. You're not going to see it very often in public construction, but here's what it is. Does the owner have a need for a facility and can he afford it? If the answer is yes, and he wants to build it in a more collaborative way between the team members and make the project a true success, then he can opt to use IPD. IPD it has a lot of advantages, but one of the main disadvantages is that it has very little checks and balances. Remember, we talked earlier about checks and balances, and IPD has very little checks and balances. But everyone's on the same page. Everyone is either a Democrat or a Republican. Everyone has the same goal, which is a successful owner and make money. Again, it's all about the money. So now under this method, we have an architect, we have the mechanical engineer, the structural engineer, the MEP engineer, all the commission agents, you have the contractor, you have the owner. Everyone is on the same page. Again, everyone is either a Democrat or a Republican, and everyone's on the same page. There's no conflict. Everyone's working towards the same goal, which is either success or failure of the project. So everyone either makes money or everyone loses money. Everyone's on the same boat. These guys, they cannot point fingers at each other. And with this delivery method, there's no bid, right? If you go to the second bullet point, design, bid, build, right? There's a period where you stop, you bid the project, you get the lowest bidder. On IPD, there's no bid, right? Those guys, they all come in early on, they work together, and they build the project. Even the general contractor is on the same boat. So in short, this approach, it requires a joint contract signed between all the parties, all the entities, after the goals and objectives have been established collaboratively. And I say collaboratively because, again, these guys are all working together, all in the same boat. And then also not very commonly used, but you will see this a lot in horizontal construction. There's what they call the 3Ps, PPP or P3. That's public, private, partnership, construction, 3Ps. This delivery method doesn't really have a straightforward definition, but it's basically a partnership. It's a contractual agreement between the public sector and a private sector. So let's think of a public agency, for instance. Let's think of the Texas Department of Transportation. You know, the Texas Department of Transportation, they can partner up with a private agency. And these two agencies, private and public, they will collaborate with each other financially, and they will collaborate with their skills, and they will deliver a service or build a facility for the use of the general public. These two parties, private and public, they're sharing their resources, but they're also sharing the risk, the liability, and obviously the rewards. Any rewards they're sharing, right? So they're either winning together or losing together. Now, as an example, let's think about road tolls. Road tolls. There's a whole lot of those here in Texas, here in the Dallas area. A lot of times you see those tolls. There's a partnership between your state and a private entity. So the public gets the benefit of a well-maintained road, and the private sector, the private partner gets the benefit of making the money, right? Because it's very expensive to drive through the tolls here in Dallas. So the public is getting the benefit of a well-maintained road, and the private partners getting the benefit of making the money, if not most of the money from the tolls that you pay every time you drive through. So the highway is a public use. The private party is making the money, but the private party needs to maintain the highway as well for as long as it exists. And the private guy will supervise the private individual to the best interests of the public, right? So road tollways, that's a good example of what PPP is, a public and private partnership. So when you drive through a tollway, don't think that's public and private. It's of public use, but it's being maintained by a private entity. It's kind of like building your own house, but you don't have all of the money. So you go to the bank, which is a private facility, right? And the bank will lend you money. Now, both sides of the table, they share risks, but both sides of the table, they also share rewards. But what's a risk for the bank? Well, perhaps you go unemployed and you can no longer afford to pay your loan. That's a risk for the bank. And what is the reward for the bank then? Well, you built your house, you're using your house, but it's not free. You're actually paying interest to the bank. So that's a benefit for them. So how is the project itself built on a P3, a public-private partnership? Well, this partnership, they can choose any other delivery methods that were discussed earlier, right? Let's say they want to build a highway. Now they can use an IPD or a CMR process or a DBB or a design build. So they can come in, they can use their partnership and adopt any of those other delivery methods. And then there's JOC. You're going to see JOC you're going to hear this term a lot at Dallas ISD. It's generally used at a much smaller scale, sometimes with a price capped by the owner, right? A limited price. It's generally used for renovation projects or small maintenance tasks that can be easily defined by a unit cost. So the key word here is unit cost. In other words, projects that are small enough where surprises are not likely to occur. And this is a direct contract between the owner and the general contractor or the maintenance contractor. And how does it work, right? The owner and the contractors interested on working for their particular entity, they'll develop an agreement that includes a list of tasks and a unit cost associated to each task. And how is this agreement developed? Well, the owner puts out a request for unit proposals, right? He advertises a request for unit proposals, and the GCs will respond back with their unit price based on the low numbers. And the owner will rank the lowest bidder, bidder number one. That one guy who has the lowest cost per unit, he's gonna be the number one GC. And then the second person who has the lowest numbers, he'll be the second favorite GC. Now they all enter, all these guys, all these GCs, let's say there are 10 ranked GCs. They all enter into an agreement with the owner, and there's a contract in place, and it stays there. The contract stays there. Now let's say 2 months from now, the owner needs to renovate a school, right? And the owner wants to use this JOC method. So he'll reach out to that bidder number one, the guy who had the lowest unit prices, and he'll ask him, are you interested in the job? He'll say yes. And then he'll have to provide the work based on those unit costs. But if the owner calls him and says, and asks him, are you interested on the job? And he says, no, I'm not interested, right? He'll call the second lowest ranked guy, right? And if that guy says, no, I'm not interested because I'm too busy working somewhere else, then the owner is going to call the third lowest ranked guy. So what's the advantage of this JOC process? Well, there's a whole lot less paperwork, right? The contract is already there, it's already in place. And so if the owner needs someone, he pulls someone right out of that contract. And the advantage, again, it's less paperwork because in public construction, paperwork usually takes a long time. It could take anywhere from 2 months to 6 months, right? And with a JOC, you already have the contract in place. Okay. So let's talk about some construction phases. Different projects, right? Different projects, different approaches. These approaches we discussed just now, they bring different project phases. Each delivery method will be approached differently. But for the purpose of today's conversations only, let's focus on the DBB, which is design, bid, build. Let's look at just that one project delivery method and its project phases. So first of all, there's a need and a demand, right? Let's assume your neighborhood keeps growing, and then your mayor will see the need and the demand for a new public hospital. There's the need and the demand. And then the mayor will hire a consultant firm and conduct a feasibility study. Is it really necessary? Do we really need this hospital? How will this hospital positively impact the public? Does the city have a location to build it? Is that location at a buildable area? How much money is going to cost to build this hospital? And how long will it take to build this hospital? Right? All these questions are asked during the feasibility study. And then the mayor will take that feasibility study and go find a funding source, because someone needs to pay for this project now. You know, a lot of committee meetings with the building department and other funding sources. The mayor needs to figure out how to pay for that need now. And so after the mayor has established their funding source, his funding source for the project, now you come in with the schematic design. At this stage, an architect is going to get hired, and he or she will draft a rough sketch of what the hospital is going to look like. This is called a schematic design. It's just a rough sketch of the project. Just to give the public an idea of what the project is all about and what it's going to look like. It's everything that was on a narrative during feasibility study, but now it translates to a sketch. Let me just plug in my computer because it's running out of battery. Right, now after you're done through, after you've translated everything that was on a narrative to paper, right, there's the design development phase. Design development, you're just elaborating on those drawings and you start bringing those drawings to life. And then Then we create milestones. Everything here is a milestone, right? A milestone when you meet that goal and you stop to get feedback from the owner or from the owner's representatives, from the stakeholders. So after design development, the next milestone, sometimes it's what we call the 20% construction document set. So you stop at 20%, you sit down with the owner, you show him the current progress, and then based on his or her comments or the public's comments, you can readjust because you have several other milestones in the future. Then a lot of times in design, bid, build, you have not a lot of times, but every time, you're always going to have a 50% construction set of documents. It's another milestone. You stop again, you sit down with the owner and the public, you show your progress, and you get feedback, right? And then there's always going to be a 90% construction set of documents. At that stage, 95%, well, this is common sense. 95%, you're almost done with your design. So it's your very last chance as the owner to incorporate your comments and to give the architecture feedback, right? You had all these other milestones. You had all your chances to get feedback. 95% is your very last chance for feedback. And 100%, right? You picked up those final comments, and 100%, that means that the architect is stamping and sealing those drawings. And it's after it's stamped and sealed, it's ready to build. And then you have procurement, right? You have the set of documents. The owner will advertise this project and get bids from the interested general contractors, right? The owner will select the lowest bidder, the lowest and most qualified bidder. And then again, it takes a long time to enter into a contract with a public entity. So, after the owner has selected the lowest and most qualified bidder, it could take anywhere from 2 to 4 months to enter into a contract with that guy. But now that guy's already, let's say he's already into an agreement with the owner, the contract has been executed, he comes in and he builds the project, right? And then after the project is built, there's what we call post-construction. I'm not going to get in details, but after post-construction, right, everyone moves in, and the facility, let's use the hospital as an example. That hospital is being utilized, and throughout the years, there's a lot of maintenance that is needed. Every now and then, there's going to be the need for renovation. The owner may or may not use a JOC system, which we discussed earlier today. So that's the live-in period of that facility. And then the very final stage of a project is the decommission of that facility, right? And that's several years later when the facility no longer has a need, right? Perhaps everyone moved away from that neighborhood. Not always the case, but maybe this facility no longer functions because it expired its lifetime. So everything is old school. So we're gonna decommission this facility. It's basically getting rid of that facility. You stop using it, or you sell it to someone else that's interested on it, and they'll demo it. They'll build something else. So let's put it into practice, right? Let's think about Dallas ISD, for instance, and what we're doing here, what Jacobs is doing here at Dallas ISD. Dallas ISD is a public entity, the Dallas Independent School System, and they have a need, which is maintain their schools or build new schools. So Jacobs was hired. We're here to represent them, and we're orchestrating all the projects. This is at a program level, so a whole bunch of projects, not at an individual level, meaning one project. Program level portfolio of projects. So Jacobs is the owner's representative for Dallas ISD. You guys are seeing you guys have heard of the 2015 bond projects, which are all under construction. You guys have heard of the 2020 bond projects, which are currently under design. So if we go back one slide, right, under design, so you'll see that some projects are either anywhere from schematic design all the way to 100% documents. Let me just go back one slide. On the, I'm gonna move my mouse around. Everything that is in darker blue. On the 2020 projects, you'll see that those projects are anywhere from design development or schematic design all the way up to construction. That's the 2020 bond. The 2015 bond, we're at the end of it. So all the projects are either under construction or post-construction. And as a project manager, at no time you'll be at only one single project phase. Again, you're gonna have a whole bunch of projects. So you're either under construction, some sort of design phase, or maybe you're communicating with other clients out there, with other potential clients who have a need and a demand. So you want to help them establish their need, their demand, so that you can get hired and come in as either a project manager or a program manager. So that's the easiest way to put it, what we talked about into practice. All right, so it's now 2:43. Let's just brainstorm together a little bit. What do you guys have?
Juwanza, do you want to go first?
You can actually go first. Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. I did have a quick question about regarding subcontractors. So let's say like a general contractor hires a subcontractor to do the lights, right? And then so they mess up and it's the subcontractor's fault. So who does the owner hold liable? Would it be the general contractor since they were the ones that hired the
General
subcontractor?
contractor, yes, sir. The general contractor.
Okay.
So the owner has a direct contract with the general contractor. So if I am the general contractor, you are the owner, you are my client.
Okay.
And all those subcontractors working for me. Now let's say you are the general contractor and I'm the subcontractor. You are my client. I deal with you directly, Mr. General Contractor, and you deal with the owner. So if all the subcontractors messed up, something goes wrong, me as the owner, I'm going to hold the general contractor liable. And obviously, the general contractor is going to hold his subcontractor liable.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Thanks. Also I had a question about Jock. Do you have like a specific example of like when to use Jock in like a certain project?
I do. And Jawanza is living Jock firsthand. He's helping with the Jock.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, Jawanza, but the Oju stone that was accomplished through a Jock. So Jabin, let me give you an example. Again, Jock is an easy process for smaller jobs. Let's say there is a facility that you need to renovate it like now. So you have 2 months to renovate this facility because let's say in August, you're bringing students for this facility temporarily. You don't have time to go through the whole procurement system, which can take anywhere from 2 to 5 months. So you utilize the Jock system, which is a pool of contractors who are already on board. And you just pick one of those guys. You go to the lowest ranked GC on that list. You ask him if he agrees to do the job. If he agrees to do the job, you do a quick contract with him again. And he will come in, do a quick renovation on the job. And there you are. You accomplished everything within 2 months.
Okay.
Whereas if you wanted to do another traditional delivery system, that's months and months. Number one, you have to design the project. It's several months to design the project. Number two, you have to procure, several months to procure. All right, so you can either do it in 2 or 3 months with a Jock, or you can do it in 2 years with the traditional delivery system.
Right. Okay.
Being an owner's representative, right? Say you're the GC, if they give an unrealistic timeline, you're not liable to accept the project if they're just like, oh, we can get this done in X amount of time, and it's just you can't
Also, let's use design, let's use that delivery method, design, bid, build as an example.
Mhm.
After design is in place, what's the next phase? Bid, right?
Right.
And so the owner advertised the projects. All the GCs interested on the job, they'll put their bid on the table. And after all the bids are on the table, the owner with the committee and the project manager, you guys, you're on the community, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna look at all those bids. You're gonna start looking at the lowest bid. Everything in public, not just public construction, but everything that is public is about the lowest number, right? You're gonna look at the lowest number first. So, all right, you already know that it's the lowest number, so that's a big plus. But now let's look at his paperwork. Does his schedule and is what he's proposing to the job feasible? Right? You're already involved in that job for a whole year helping the designer. You have an idea of how long it's going to take to build that facility, right? In your mind, you're telling yourself, well, I think it's going to take, based on my experience, I think it's going to take 9 months to build this facility. But this guy is telling me that he's going to build it in 6 months. This is not feasible. So let's look at the second lowest number now. And then you go one by one until you find the guy who is the most qualified. Right?
Yeah.
Most qualified meaning, does he know what he's talking about on paper? Next week, hopefully, Purva, next week or the week after, Purva and I can do an introduction to project controls.
Yep.
And go over some of that. Project controls, really those guys back in the office, they're doing estimating, they're doing scheduling, they're doing all procurement, they're working with all the invoices, and holding all those general contractors, architects, and ancillary vendors, consultants, holding them accountable as per the contract. So hopefully Purva and I can do a little session sometime next week or the week after, and just focus on project controls, because project controls is really very important. I remember telling Purva when he came in and he joined the team, I said, Purva, you're the right place, man. You're the right place, because you need to understand project controls before you understand construction. Usually someone comes into construction as a project controls engineer, right? And you do that for about a year, you understand project controls, then you, if you choose to do so, right, you go out to the field working as a project manager or assistant project manager, whatever the case is. All right, that being said, guys, I'm gonna hang up. I'm joining another call now.
Okay.
All right.
Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Take care.
You too. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.